So today, we're diving into something truly massive. We're looking at an incredibly ambitious vision that stretches nearly 40 years into the future. This is India's grand plan for space, a roadmap that's designed to take them from their very first human spaceflight all the way to Mars. And this quote, man, it just sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? It really captures this whole journey from ancient astronomy to modern-day astronautics. This isn't just a list of missions. It's a real statement of intent. It's about a nation's ambition to go from being an observer of the cosmos to a major player among the stars. Okay, so here it is, the entire journey laid out for us. You can see the roadmap is broken down into these really clear decade-long phases. It all starts with mastering our own orbital backyard. From there, it's about establishing a real presence on the moon, then building a vibrant space economy, and finally, reaching for that ultimate prize, Mars. So let's start at the very beginning. Right, so the first 10 years are all about laying the foundation. This is what they're calling the human spaceflight era, and it's completely focused on learning to live and work in low Earth orbit. You have to get this part right. It's the critical first step before you can even think about venturing further out. And it all kicks off in 2025 with a truly historic mission called Gaganyaan. This is going to be it, India's first ever crewed spaceflight. We're talking about launching their own astronauts on their own rocket from their own soil. What a monumental moment for the country that will be. And get this, India's space explorers won't be called astronauts or cosmonauts. They're going to be known as Vyomnauts. The name itself is pretty cool, actually. It comes from the Sanskrit word Vyoman, which means sky or space. It gives India's space pioneers their own unique identity right from the start. But Gaganyaan is just the beginning of this first chapter. The very next major milestone in this decade is the Indian Space Station, or ISSI. And this isn't about just visiting space for a few days. This is about building a home there. Now, to make this a little more real for you, the ISSI is planned to orbit at an altitude of 400 kilometers. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the same orbit as the International Space Station, placing it right in that sweet spot where we can learn all the fundamentals of living in space for long periods. So why even build a space station? Well, because it's basically a floating laboratory. It's absolutely essential for figuring out how to sustain human life off our planet. It's where they'll have to tackle huge challenges, like growing food in microgravity, studying how zero-G affects the human body long-term, and hopefully developing new medicines and materials that could benefit us all back on Earth. This is the logical question, right? Once you've learned how to live in your own backyard, you can't help but start looking over the fence. And for us here on Earth, that fence is the huge distance to our closest celestial neighbor. And that leads us right into the next phase, the new lunar age. Now, the key word here is permanent. See, India has already been to the moon with its incredible Chandrayaan missions, but this is different. This is about going there to stay. And here's the game plan for the moon. It's very methodical, a step-by-step process. First, you build a base. Then, you start using the moon's own resources, like the water ice we know is there, to produce essential stuff like breathable oxygen and even rocket fuel. And finally, the plan looks even further ahead, to mining resources like helium-3, which could be a game-changer for clean fusion energy down the road. And this is the pinnacle of the entire lunar era. All of that hard work, building the base, extracting resources, it all leads to this single, iconic moment, the first Indian Vyomnauts setting foot on the lunar surface. Okay, so as India gets a handle on living and working on the moon, the vision shifts again. This next phase is all about turning those scientific achievements into real strategic and economic power. It's about leveraging space for development right here on Earth. And this is a huge pivot. The focus moves away from pure exploration and towards creating a self-sustaining economy that operates between the Earth and the moon. It's about turning the high frontier into a new economic frontier. So what does a space economy actually look like? Well, we get a glimpse of it here. We're talking about giant solar power stations in orbit beaming clean energy down to Earth, a much larger 120-ton permanent space station, and even opening the doors for civilians with space tourism. And that finally brings us to the last, and let's be honest, by far the most audacious chapter in this grand vision, the interplanetary dream. All the previous decades, all that work, it's all been building towards this one thing, the journey to Mars.
Now, the very first step toward the red planet isn't to land, but to orbit. The goal by 2057 is to send a crewed mission on that long journey to Mars, circle the planet, and then, crucially, return home safely. That mission alone is a monumental challenge.
And you really can't overstate how difficult this is. A trip to Mars is going to require brand new technologies, things like nuclear-powered spacecraft to get there faster, advanced life support systems that can work for years without any resupply, and of course, training bionauts for the incredible physical and psychological rigors of deep space. And here it is, the final destination of this entire 40-year odyssey. After you've proven you can orbit Mars and come back, the next logical step is to land. Putting Indian boots on Martian soil is the crowning achievement of this whole multi-generational plan. You know, when you boil it all down, this entire epic vision can be understood as 3 simple but incredibly powerful steps. First, learn to live in orbit around Earth. Then, learn to live on another world, the Moon. And finally, use all of that knowledge to take the next great leap, to step foot on Mars. Ultimately, this roadmap is about so much more than just planting flags and leaving footprints. It is a detailed, long-term blueprint for transforming India into a true spacefaring civilization, one that's capable of living and working far beyond its home planet. I think this is just the perfect thought to end on because it brings everything full circle. This ambitious, almost sci-fi sounding plan. It isn't just a dream on paper anymore. It's a project that's actively in motion. It makes you wonder, what do you think will be the biggest challenge they'll face on this incredible journey? Thanks for tuning in.